sees my face doing. And so every expression that I make, every little facial movement, the eye movements, it's kind of a lot of the little things too, like the little muscles on your face that move when you talk and you make little micro expressions. So if I was in a virtual world and trying to convey emotions to another person, then they would see everything. That's pretty cool. VR and AR both work pretty well through this headset, but at the end of the day, it still is a pretty chunky, it's a pretty big headset. It doesn't fold down either, so if you want to travel with it, you need like a bag or a backpack. This version might not be tempting to you. Zuckerberg keeps telling me, people buy a new $2,000 machine as their desktop computer all the time, and this is maybe a replacement for that someday. But this might not be tempting to you. But theoretically, in a couple of years, a new version of it is much, much smaller, closer to like a regular pair of glasses. And then even further down the road, another version is even smaller, maybe lightweight like Google Glass used to be back in the day. And then eventually, it's an incredible, actually portable piece of tech. And so, theoretically, if you pour enough money and talent, which leads me to my next point. This is the real question here. Every time I see a new VR headset pop up, whether it's this like Pico Pro headset or the Meta Quest Pro or anything like that, the question is always like, is this VR thing really actually gonna be the future? Like, it's cool with tech and it works and everything, but are we actually gonna be spending meaningful time in VR at some point? And the answer, of course, depends on who you ask, obviously. I feel like I've noticed the younger the person is that you talk to, the more likely they are to want to give VR a chance or to try it more often. But if you ask Meta, if you ask anyone in leadership at Meta, the answer is yes, absolutely 100%. This is the future that we are all going to be living in, using VR all the time. Metaverse for sure. Now, of course, they have to believe in that because the whole company is a huge ship barreling in that exact direction. But also watching the presentation of everything at the Meta Connect key. Basically, step one, think of all the things people normally do on the internet. Step two, make those things in VR and then pour tons of money into them. And then that's kind of the whole plan. If you get the time and you actually get to watch through that presentation, it happens over and over again, where basically they realize that people do certain things in real life and then they want to bring that thing into VR. Oh, you'd like to do this? Here's a VR version. Oh, you do this other thing? Here's a VR version, over and over again. And ideally, for them anyway, convincing people to use the VR version just will become a matter of making the VR version really, really good. Hopefully better than the real life version. And that's where I think my hot take comes in, which is that some of these VR applications are actually scary good and starting to look better than the non-VR version. And for Meta, if they can get enough of these things to be real, then they'll be making this metaverse thing happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Metaverse
happen. It's not going to happen.
Okay, so some are easier than others, right? Gaming, yeah, we've got some good games already in VR. Now, we got to work on getting more, like a better variety of games, better fidelity, etc., more immersion. And pouring money into this ecosystem will entice developers to rapidly improve games and make better games, which is awesome. But there's more to life than just games. What else do people do all day in 2022? Zoom calls? Okay, perfect. Yes, they've got Zoom calls, but better. They've built an entire virtual meeting room experience where you can do video conferencing in VR with other people. So, if some of your friends or coworkers don't have VR headsets, that's fine. They'll show up as a floating video feed in the metaverse. But now with a bunch of people in meetings, you can talk to the people around you. You can do breakout meeting rooms instantly, really good immersive presentations, etc. Now, currently, as you can tell, these are all using these avatars. And these, I think, are bad. They're pretty cringy. I mean, you can customize them, of course, with a bunch of different things, different hair and features and outfits and piercings, etc., which is kind of neat, sure, but you still end up feeling like a metaverse meeting is just a bunch of Mii characters from Nintendo Wii. But it's very much a stopgap because we also saw that Meta announced this live avatar demo that looked absolutely wild to me. You can essentially use your phone to take a scan of yourself, and then the headset takes that and puts a photorealistic version of you into the virtual environment, complete with that face tracking and eye tracking and everything that we talked about before. That is super next level. So you can imagine now, instead of just a Zoom call with coworkers, a really good meeting is a bunch of people from all over the world all in one room with all the advantages of the eye contact and relative audio positioning and being able to like lean over to the person next to you and say something really quietly just to them. All of this is stuff that you can't really do in a Zoom call. And so just replace these weird avatars with the hyper realistic ones and they might be onto something. But that's just meetings. That's not even that much time. What else do people do? Maybe they just work remotely, period. Sure, okay, then they'll build this whole metaverse, this whole virtual office building for people to work in. So if they work all over the world in different countries, they can all collaborate in the same spaces. But even the first thing I showed in this video, which is just simply working on your computer, which is a thing that many people do for many hours a day. And the Quest Pro has native Mac support that let me project my Mac screen onto these multiple huge virtual screens. So you can take a huge triple monitor setup wherever you go, basically. You can just take this headset with you and do way more with fairly high resolution that can again get better with time and more money. They've poured money into Microsoft to bring Office 365 and Word and Excel and everything into workrooms natively. They've poured money into Accenture to give them like thousands and thousands of VR headsets to get those people to use the metaverse to work virtually all the time. Basically, Meta can and will dump a ton of money into this because that's all they're doing right now. There's like a common trope that like if you want to make a bunch of money as a startup right now, just make a virtual reality tech startup in some way and you will eventually level up enough to just get acquired by Meta. It's no wonder chief metaverse officers became a thing. That became a way to like make it seem like you might get acquired by Meta. But that brings us to the last thing. VR stuff now along those same lines, don't get me wrong. There's the Pico headset I just showed you.